Hello, welcome to another episode of Everyday Amazing. Of course, I'm your host, Alton, and tonight I have another amazing episode for you. I think you're going to really love this next guest. She's an author that everyone needs to know, and I have the pleasure of speaking with her tonight, and I think you're going to love her book. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Everyday Amazing with Sky Alton. Everyday Amazing. Everyday Amazing with Sky Alton.
Welcome back to the show. So, as always, I am striving to bring you guys amazing stories from people all across Northern California, not just Sacramento. And tonight I have somebody from my hometown, or at least my home area. I have Miss Toba Adina-Jao. How are you tonight?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Of course. I'm glad that you decided to be on the show. First off, before we get into about you, how did you hear about Everyday Amazing? I just want the audience out there to know.
I came across your page on Instagram, and then I started watching all your shows, and then I came across Grant Drumline, who I had the pleasure of meeting a few months ago.
Mr. V?
Yeah. Yes, and supporting their cause, and I'm like, I need to learn how I can get on this show.
It was that easy, right? You reached out to me,
I did.
and I learned a little bit about your story, and I thought to myself, you know what? This is a person who I feel like everyone should know about and know about her book. So with that in mind, let's just get right into it. You are author of Me, Mommy, Mantu. How did that come about? First, what does the Mantu mean?
So Mantu is a dumpling. It's an Afghan dumpling. It is just dough filled with ground beef and onions and seasonings, and then it's steamed or boiled. And very similar to other dumplings, but in Afghanistan, it's one of our very popular and traditional dishes.
Got it. See, I had no idea that. I think when most people think dumplings, they think like Chinese dumplings, right? And so I just learned something already, and we're only like 10 seconds into the show.
Right, and you just have to go and try it now and let me know what you think.
We might have to have you come back and then, bring some, or maybe we'll do an episode where you show me like how it's like put together.
Yeah,
I think that would be good.
That might work.
So, the book, Me, Mommy, Mantu, what inspired that?
It was something that I was sitting on for years. And I, as an adult, am always calling my mom, trying to figure out, how do I make this? How do I make that? And then it was just a connection of, I want to leave something behind for my children while retaining cultural recipes. And so I said, you know what? I'm going to make a book for each of my children along the subject of their favorite Afghan dish with the recipe on the back. And that's kind of how Me, Mommy, Mantu came about.
First of all, I love the idea that you want to leave, this behind for your children. How many children? How many kids?
I have three. I have three children.
And so, if I heard this correctly, you want to leave a book for each of your children, right?
Right.
I think that's so cool.
Thank you.
That's so amazing. So what was that process like? As like the writing process of?
Oh gosh, I mean, it was just like an idea, idea in the mind. And I'm like, well, I had no idea where to start. So I just started with putting pen to paper, writing the story out, sharing it with friends and family and saying, what do you think of this story? Getting some feedback and just putting myself out there. I mean, I had no idea. I am not an author. I was never an author in a past life. But I typed out the manuscript and blindly emailed it to publishers and editors, wherever I could find information or an email or a contact, Random House, Penguin Books, and said, hey, this is my book. I'd love to share it with you, and kind of started from there.
Now, was there ever a moment where you felt like a discouraging moment? Right, because you have this idea, and you want to put this out there. You have, like I said, I like the idea of leaving it for your kids, but as you know, it's not easy to get the resources and not knowing how to put everything together. I just want to know, how did you overcome if you had any feelings of is this going to work, or, what am I doing? Because I feel like that's a very realistic thing, right? Where we all have these great ideas, but sometimes we get discouraged, right? And because we don't know where to start. And so sometimes when you don't know where to start, you kind of sometimes talk yourself out of it, right? And so did you have any of that, or was it just like, you know what, I know I'm gonna do this regardless, even if I don't know what I'm doing, I'm gonna do it, so I'm just gonna figure out, because I've had guests think that way too, where they just knew like they were gonna do it and they just did it, right? But that's a little bit rare. Like most of us, sometimes like we have an idea and we know we wanna do it, but it's like I said, it's working up the courage, right? One, and then after the courage comes like resources and trying to figure out. But if you don't have that first step of like courage to actually put it out there, then you never make it to step 2, 3, and 4. So for you, were there any setbacks?
Oh, yes. I mean, just initially, I came to a point where I was like, Toba, if you're going to do it, see it through and do it. If not, stop dwelling on it.
Right, okay.
And my initial, I made so many mistakes along the way. One, blasting the story in a Word document, emailing it to random editors and publishers. I learned the hard way that you don't do that in the book world, because someone can say, hey, that's my story.
Oh.
But I think I sent about 200 to 300 emails. And I got feedback, I got responses, and it was like, oh, this is a cute story, but we're really not interested in it, or this is not the type of stories we publish. Rejection after rejection after rejection of emails. And I said, well, gosh, I'm not getting any bites, but I made a promise to my children that I want to uphold. And gosh, I'm still going to figure this out and make it happen. And I came across one amazing woman who said, I can mentor you if you're open to mentorship, but that's all I can offer. And I said, you know what, I'll take it because I'm open to learning and this is how it's gonna be. And it was through her coaching, and gosh, we got on Zoom calls probably like once or twice a month, and she was like, this is the next step. Have you done it? Yes, I've done this. So let's move this process along. But being open to coaching allowed me to follow along in those steps. And yeah, it was self-published, and the crazy part for me was at the end, once I actually had the book in hand, I emailed everybody that sent me the rejections and said, here's my book, this is where you can find it, and although you weren't able to help me, I made it happen. And that was a really, really positive and feel-good moment for
me.
Very rewarding.
Yeah. I like that. I like that you did that too. It's like, listen, even though you guys didn't see the vision, here is what, I was going for, and look, I made it happen. That mentorship, that person, I think that's really big. I've had a previous guest talk about the importance of mentorship and finding someone who can connect you either with the right people or just can like show you the right steps, right? And I'm so happy that you mentioned that, because a lot of the times, we don't know where to start, and even when someone tries to help us, you have to be open to someone.
So true.
Maybe like telling you like how you should go about it, right? And so I think that in itself, like you said, allowing yourself to be open to, criticism, and also, someone almost kind of like, I don't want to say like babysitting you, but just really kind of, showing you that, hey, listen, I know more than you, but I'm gonna show you anyway, so don't take it offensively, because sometimes people, they have great ideas, but when you try to like help them, they I get it, it's your baby, right? Like when you have a vision, no one can see what you see, so like when someone's trying to like tell you things, it sometimes, for some people, it can be hard.
Right. Okay.
Right. As someone who has a show, I say criticism all the time.
Yeah.
But for me, I handle it as like if someone cares enough to give me criticism, that means that they're invested.
Right.
Because what's worse is if someone has no opinion, right, on it, right? So you're like doing this thing, and like they just don't like, oh, what did you think of my book? Oh, I don't have any feedback.
Oh yeah,
Like, you
I
know,
mean,
like-
just a amazing random person that came into my life, and I mean, I look back and I'm like, that was time, getting on all those Zoom calls, and I'm like, can I pay you? And she's like, nope, you were open to learning, and I just noticed that in you, and I wanted to help. So, but I mean, there's that gratitude for me of, she made time every single night, in Texas, and I'm in California, and it was the time that worked in the evening for me to connect with me for hours and walk me through this process. And that was just like so much love and respect for people that want to mentor others.
I like that. Now, something that stands out to me is your drive, right? Because you sent out like 300 emails. Where do you think that comes from? Is that like your upbringing? Now, I know, you're from Alameda, right? But originally, you're not from Alameda. So just tell me a little bit about like your upbringing, and maybe
Right.
I'll get that'll
Sure.
give us a better sense of
Oh
like,
yeah,
you get that drive.
absolutely. I mean, I was born in Kabul, Afghanistan. My parents abruptly in the 80s decided within a matter of days, they knew that there was an imminent war, and they decided we need to get up and leave. And my parents, they had just had me. I was one, just newly married, having a 1-year-old, and having to uproot. And they were like, well, we're leaving. My father turned over the keys to their new house to his sister and said, get rid of everything. He trusted a person that said, I will get you out of the country, but we're gonna escape. They escaped through the night. I mean, my father carried my grandmother on his back. My mom had me. I mean, she shares stories of like, we ran out of milk and I tried to quiet you with water. We were on a raft in cold water in hours upon hours at night, trying to tread and get out of Afghanistan. And then not only that, but they trusted a person that they paid with this notion of they're gonna help us get out of Afghanistan. They arrived in Pakistan for about 2 years before we moved to California. So, I mean, I think that drive stems from the sacrifices that my parents have made to not, to leave home, to leave everything behind. And if you put yourself in that situation of, if you had to leave in 3 days and turn everything over, not knowing where you are going, the fact that they made that tremendous of a sacrifice for a better life for me, that drives me so much.
It's like, how could you not, right?
Right.
You know, like when you know and you hear what your parents like went through just to give you a shot.
Right.
It's
Absolutely.
like, like you're gonna make the best of it. Like it's like you have no excuse.
Right.
And so I can really see that like in you. Like you give off like that energy.
Yeah.
How was growing up, in California, for you and like your parents, like I said, being not, originally from California and, United States.
Yeah. So, I mean, coming in to Alameda, I was just 3 when we arrived. So I have, some memories of those early years, but I know that my primary language was Farsi. I spoke Farsi fluently. I didn't know any English. I was thrown into the school system and just trying to get acclimated there, learning English. And I really give credit to, I just have a lot of respect towards educators, teachers, because, not only are they trying to educate a classroom, but the fact that they have to work even a little bit more with me. Here's this girl from Afghanistan, doesn't speak English. How are we gonna bring her up to speed? I mean, I went through the Head Start program, ESL, English as Second Language, flashcards, tutors at home. I mean, everything and anything. And I think sometimes that stuff is frowned upon, but I look at it as, oh my God, those are just blessings. And if you're given those opportunities, it's there to help you.
Yeah.
And I mean, that was early upbringing for me in Alameda. And
I like that. And like I said, you took advantage of those things or whatever. Like they're there to help you, so why be ashamed of it? Like, And that's funny you say that because, thinking back, I had an English teacher tell me, you know who has like the the best grammar, it's usually like people who aren't born in United States, whatever, because they're learning it as their second language, so they learn like all the rules and they have to be very like precise, because it's different for them, right?
Right,
and so
right.
whereas like me growing up here, it's a lot of slang, right? And so, grammar wise or whatever, it's terrible to like edit it or like correct and go over papers. But, if it's your second language, my teacher said that, yeah, like they tend to be better writers than some of like the natives. So you saying that, I'm thinking about, you know what, there are some benefits, like that.
Yeah.
Maybe back then I didn't necessarily like think about. And so have someone talk about how they took advantage of like all the resources. I'm like, man, like, like people should be, proud of like the resources and what they're doing. Because I know when I was in school, I know those programs, and I did feel like some of the students, they didn't want to say like if they were, ESL student, and, you know how like kids are,
yeah, totally, totally.
But in hindsight, it probably made them better students, at least better readers and better writers.
I mean, even looking back now and just putting myself in those high school years of the amount of resources teachers offer to students. And I remember I didn't take up a lot of the, hey, math is not your strong suite. Let's do one-on-one tutoring. And I'm like, I'm not doing one-on-one tutoring and staying after school. But, 360 degrees and like being an adult now, I'm like, oh my gosh, I wish I had taken advantage of that tutoring or that resource or that, that session after school. And I try to encourage children to do that now. And I'm like, wherever there's a resource or a need, be curious, ask questions, ask for help, because you learn so much.
I like that. So we're going to continue. We're going to get back to the book. But before that, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back after these messages.
Everyday amazing with Sky Alton.
Hey, I'm Mr. V with Grant Drumline, and you're watching Everyday Amazing with Sky Alton.
Everyday amazing with Sky Alton.
Welcome back to the show. I am still with Toba, author of Mommy Mantu. So before we went to break, we were really talking about like the school system and how your experience with the school system and what you learned, and basically something I want to touch on also. You, like I said, you being from like Alameda and then eventually coming Sacramento, right, and going to Sac State.
Yeah.
You actually majored in like communications, correct?
I did.
Now, what was your experience like at Sac State? Because I also went to Sac State, so as a fellow alumni,
right.
I'm just curious about like your experience, and we are here in Sacramento, so just tell me what you liked about Sac State.
What I initially was going to go to San Francisco State, but I wanted to get away from family and spread my wings a little, and so the furthest they were like, okay, Sacramento, 2 hours, that works. No, but what I really loved about Sacramento is, for me, it was just being exposed to a whole new city outside of the Bay Area in Alameda. Everything was new. Initially, starting Sac State, I actually was going to pursue nursing.
Okay.
And then I went undeclared, and I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. But, communication stuck with me because even as a child, I liked writing. I just didn't know how much. And taking these communications classes and doing writing and doing PR stuff and volunteering and interning at a local television station, it all kind of,
Tied in,
came back.
That's what I was getting at.
Okay.
That's what I was, like fishing for, because I sometimes like you can tell like a lot of, so one of my close friends, he majored in psychology. He's always going to say that like, your upbringing and what you're exposed to early on is the catalyst for everything, right? And it all comes full circle, right? And so, you talked about like your upbringing and your parents. So we know you got a lot of like your drive from that. But then as you traveled away from home and got that experience and being a communications major, I feel like it all was pushing you to communicate with people. Because even with your book, that's what you're doing. You're communicating, on a larger scale, like with people. At the very core, you're an author, but you're still, at the core, communication and what is the word? Enthusiast? Yeah, I think that's what I go for. Whatever.
Okay.
Like you enjoy, speaking to people,
connecting with people, speaking with people. Oh yeah.
Exactly.
And in hindsight, looking back as a child, as a young kid, I had written to American Girl magazine. I think I wrote to, I still have these letters. I wrote to Wrigley Spearmint, giving my opinion on suggestions. I even wrote Oprah. I was writing, and I had this pen pal relationship with an editor of American Girl magazine for years. So, reading, writing has always been in me, but I just never knew that it was something that I would come back to later in life.
Well, we have a few pictures and some video footage of this process and everything that your journey. So let's take a look at that, and then you can tell us a little bit about some of the pictures that we have. So this, of course, is the book.
Yes, this is the cover of the book, illustrated by a young Ukrainian illustrator that did this at the height of war in Ukraine. Right. It's amazing backstory to the story. Okay. This is me giving back into the community, is something that I hold near and dear. This was collecting 600 toys and books for the UC Davis Pediatric Infusion Center. Mm-hmm. Going to schools and talking about Me Mommy Mantu, encouraging children to dream big and pursue anything and everything that they want to in life.
I like it.
Yeah. Again, just in the community, I was holding a new Afghan boy that recently arrived from Afghanistan, gifting him a book and just anything that I can do to let them know that you're loved, we love you, we care about you. It's really important to give back to our community.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. This is my book launch, almost 2 years ago. Local book launch once the book was complete and celebrating Me Mommy Mantu being published.
Amazing.
This was me at an Elk Grove Elementary School in front of a school assembly, reading the book and speaking to all the students.
Amazing. So, like I said earlier, just from looking at those pictures and the video footage, at the very core, I think you are a communications major, and I'm a little bit biased because, I'm a communications major, and I always say, even with my talk show, at the very core, I love, connecting people, and just on a mass scale, and that is pretty much, like I said, what you're doing, and you're giving back, and I always felt like all communication majors. I'm a little bit biased. I'm gonna say this: all communication majors at their core love to give back. My communication teacher would clap right now because he would say the same thing.
Yeah.
But we have about 2 minutes left of the show, and this is the part of the show where I like to have a little bit of fun.
Okay.
And so with that being said, I have these cards, and you don't know what card you're going to get. It's completely random. I don't rig it, but we'll have you pick a card, and then we'll have you answer the question. And
right.
it can be kind of fun because you never know what you're going to get.
Sounds good. All right. Oh, gosh. Who was your first friend? I would say my first friend was probably my father. My father was my first friend. He, oh my gosh, took the time, all the time, to be there, to support me. And going that extra mile. If it was school, if it was athletics, if it was just culture. And it was somebody that I could lean on, somebody that motivated me, encouraged me, celebrated every win, big or small.
I like that.
Yeah.
So we have a little bit more time, so I think I'll pick a card as well.
Okay.
That's a hard follow-up, you know. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to say something as beautiful as that, but we'll see. We'll see what I end up with. So, what song always makes you want to dance? Oh,
That's a hard one.
that is a hard one, right? What, like, always makes me want to dance? It's got to be a Michael Jackson, Billie Jean.
Okay.
Yeah, you know, once that beat come on, you know, I mean, it's kind of hard not
Ready to go.
yeah, it's kind of hard not to move. So, but yeah, that's my answer. I want you to tell the audience out there where they can go and follow
Sure.
you, where they can support you, where they can buy the book. Is there social media? Is there a website? Just give out all the information so people out there can go check it out.
Absolutely. I mean, on social media, Instagram, it's One Way to Kabul is where you can find all the information pertaining to the book, opportunities, interviews, everything that's going on and the most recent and most updated. As far as where you can purchase the book, it is available on Amazon or Barnes & Noble's online.
Okay. All right. And before I let you go, what's next for like you? Do you have another book in the works?
I do. I
okay.
completed book 2. I
All
will
right.
not share the title yet.
Okay.
We got to keep it a little exciting. I've completed book 2 and handed it over to the illustrator, Valeria, and hoping, fingers crossed, to launch it in 2025.
All right. Well, thank you again for coming on the show and sharing your story and talking about the book. Like I said, I think what you're doing for the community work that you do and just like you following like your passion and your idea that you had and just everything that you got from like your parents really shows in your work. And like I said, like people like you are why I do what I do, is to
Thank you.
highlight all the work that you guys are doing. Keep doing it, and if you guys keep doing it, then I will keep doing what I'm doing, and so it all goes full circle.
Sounds good. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. And for those out there, I hope you guys enjoyed another episode of Everyday Amazing. Of course, I'm your host, Alton, and don't forget to pick up her book. All right, it's an amazing read. If you have kids, I'm sure they're gonna love it. And until next time, I'll see you then.
Everyday amazing with Sky Alton. Everyday amazing. Everyday amazing with Sky Alton.